Claire dropped the last of her moving boxes on the floor and slumped onto her new couch, exhausted. The apartment was small but cozy, with tall windows that let in the warm afternoon sunlight. It was her first place alone, a fresh start after a messy breakup. She looked around, feeling a sense of cautious hope. As she unpacked the box of kitchen supplies, she noticed a small, cream-colored envelope on the countertop. It hadn't been there when she first walked in. Frowning, she picked it up. There was no address or postage, just her name written in elegant script. Claire. Curiosity piqued. She tore open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. The handwriting was beautiful, almost old-fashioned. My dearest Claire, I know you don't remember me, but I remember you. I've waited so long to find you again. Do you still love the smell of rain? The way the first drops fall and the earth comes alive. It was our favorite thing back then. I hope you're well in your new home. I'll write again soon. I need to tell you everything I couldn't before. Yours eternally, A. Claire's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes darted around the empty apartment, half expecting someone to jump out and shout, "Gotcha!" But there was only silence. She reread the letter, her heart pounding. It had to be a prank. Maybe her friends were messing with her, trying to cheer her up after the breakup. Still, there was something strange about the letter. The way it mentioned her love of rain, something she rarely talked about. It wasn't a well-known fact, even among her closest friends. How could anyone know that? She shook her head, laughing it off. It's just a joke, she muttered to herself, tossing the letter onto the coffee table. She went back to unpacking, but the words lingered in her mind, replaying over and over. Do you still love the smell of rain? Later that night, as she lay in bed, the city's noises fading into the background, she found herself thinking about the letter again. The handwriting, the intimate tone. It didn't feel like a prank. It felt real, almost nostalgic. She picked up her phone and typed out a message to her best friend Megan. Hey, did you leave a weird letter in my apartment today? The reply came almost immediately. What letter? I haven't been to your place since you moved in. Claire frowned, a shiver running down her spine. If it wasn't Megan, then who? She glanced at the letter on the table, illuminated by the soft glow of her bedside lamp. Maybe it was just a harmless prank. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that the letter was meant for her, and her alone. The next morning, Claire found herself glancing at the coffee table every few minutes as she made breakfast. The letter lay there, untouched, but it seemed to call out to her, filling the room with an unspoken question. She couldn't ignore it any longer. She picked it up, tracing the delicate handwriting with her fingertip. Who are you? A, she whispered. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Claire decided to do some investigating. She asked the building manager if anyone had been to her apartment. The manager, a kindly old woman named Mrs. Hargrove, shook her head. No one except you, dear, she said. Are you settling in okay? Claire forced a smile. Yeah, everything's great. As the day went on, she couldn't focus on anything else. At work, she found herself distracted, the words from the letter replaying in her mind. It felt as if the writer knew her deeply, intimately, in a way that no one ever had. And the strangest part, she felt an odd sense of comfort from it. That night, she returned home to find another envelope slipped under her door. Her heart raced as she picked it up. The same cream-colored paper, the same elegant script. She opened it with trembling hands. My dearest Claire, you always ask too many questions. I love that about you. I know you're confused and I wish I could explain everything now, but you need to remember first. Do you still keep a rose quartz on your nightstand? You said it helped you sleep better. Once upon a time. I remember how you used to hold it when you couldn't fall asleep. I'll write again soon. Please trust me. I never stopped loving you. Yours eternally, A. Claire's knees went weak and she sank onto the couch. She hadn't told anyone about the rose quartz. It was a small personal thing she kept since she was a teenager, a gift from her grandmother who believed it brought comfort and love. How could anyone know about that? A wave of dizziness washed over her. This wasn't just a prank. It couldn't be. Whoever was writing these letters knew things about her that no one else could possibly know. Memories she barely remembered herself. She pressed the letter to her chest, a strange mixture of fear and longing surging through her. It was like reading a message from a long-lost lover, someone she had known deeply but had forgotten. She felt a pang of sadness, as if she had lost something precious and only now realized it. Claire took a deep breath and grabbed a pen and paper. She wrote a simple note, her hand shaking. Who are you? How do you know me? Please tell me the truth. She folded the note and placed it by the door, hoping for a reply. As she turned off the lights and climbed into bed, she couldn't help but glance at the rose quartz on her nightstand. It felt like she was reaching for a memory, just out of her grasp. The next morning, Claire found herself standing by the door, staring at the note she had left out the night before. It was gone. Her heart raced as she glanced down to find another cream-colored envelope in its place. She picked it up with shaking hands, feeling a strange mix of anticipation and dread. My dearest Claire, you're asking the right questions, and I knew you would. You always were the curious one. As for who I am, I'm someone who loved you once, and I still do. But we're separated by more than just time. Do you remember the old willow tree by the lake? We used to sit there for hours, talking about the future. You once said you felt like you lived 1,000 lives before this one. You were right. Please don't be afraid. I'm not here to hurt you. I only want you to remember. Yours eternally, A. Claire felt a chill run down her spine. The old willow tree by the lake she hadn't thought about in years. It was a place she used to visit as a child, a sanctuary where she felt inexplicably at peace. It was there where she used to imagine stories of past lives, where she felt a connection to something beyond herself, but she had never told anyone about it. Not a single soul. Who are you, A? Claire whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The letters were stirring up something deep within her, like a shadow of a memory just out of reach. She found herself longing for the connection she felt in the words, a warmth she hadn't realized she was missing from her life. Determined to get answers, Claire decided to visit the lake. It was a place she hadn't been to since she was a teenager. As she made her way through the winding trails of the old park, she felt a strange sense of deja vu. Everything looked the same yet different, as if she was seeing it through the lens of someone else. When she reached the willow tree, she stopped, her breath catching in her throat. Carved into the bark, faded but still legible, were two initials, C and A. She traced the letters with her fingertips, feeling a strange pull in her chest. It was like a memory she couldn't quite place, a moment she had lived but couldn't remember. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the branches, and a piece of paper fluttered down from the tree. Claire caught it, her hand shaking. It was another letter, the ink smeared as if it had been written long ago. My dearest Claire, you found it. I knew you would. We were here once before, in another time. This place was our sanctuary. I remember the way you laughed when I carved our initials into the bark. You said it was silly, but you smiled and kissed me anyway. Do you feel it now? The connection we once had. It's still there, even after all this time. Yours eternally, A. Claire sank to the ground, tears streaming down from her face. She did feel it, a sense of loss and love so deep it overwhelmed her. It was as if she had lost someone she had loved across lifetimes. I don't understand, she whispered. How is this possible? But deep down she knew she wasn't imagining it. This wasn't a prank. It was real, and she was beginning to remember. Claire returned home, her mind swirling with questions. She could no longer dismiss the letters as a prank or coincidence. Whoever was writing to her knew her in ways no one else could. The memories they described felt familiar, like pieces of a puzzle she was now only beginning to see. As she sat on the couch, another letter slid beneath her door. Her hands trembled as she opened it. My dearest Claire, you're starting to remember, aren't you? You felt it too, the pull of something deeper, something beyond this life. I've searched for you across time, through lifetimes we shared, and lifetimes we missed. We promised we'd find each other again, no matter how long it took. In our last life, we couldn't be together. We were separated by forces we couldn't control. But this time I found you. Please don't be afraid. You once believed in the eternity of love, that our souls were connected by an unbreakable thread. I'm here, Claire. I've always been here. Yours eternally, A. Claire clutched the letter to her chest, feeling a wave of emotions wash over her. Love, grief, longing. It was impossible, yet she couldn't deny the truth in the words. Memories flickered in her mind, moments she hadn't lived in this lifetime. But they felt real. A dance under the moonlight, a whispered promise beneath the stars. A kiss that felt like coming home. She grabbed her phone and called Megan. I need to tell you something, she said, her voice shaking. Megan listened quietly as Claire explained everything. The letters, the memories, the strange sense of familiarity. Claire, Megan said slowly, it sounds unbelievable. But you don't sound crazy. You sound like someone who's remembering something important. Claire let out a shuddering breath. I know it sounds insane, but it feels real. I can't explain it. Maybe you don't need to explain it, Megan said softly. Maybe you just need to trust it. Claire hung up, feeling both comforted and more confused than ever. She sat by the window, watching the rain begin to fall. It was soft, gentle rain, the kind she loved. She thought of the words in the first letter, about her love for the smell of rain. It felt like a message, a sign. Suddenly there was a knock at her door. Her heart leapt in her throat. She rushed to open it, hoping against hope to see a familiar face, but there was no one there. Only another letter soaked from the rain. My dearest Claire, I'm closer than you think. I've been waiting for you to remember. Meet me where it all began. Yours eternally, A. Claire knew where she had to go. It was a place where all her memories seemed to lead. Back to the willow tree. Claire stood beneath the willow tree, her heart pounding in her chest. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and fragrant. She felt a presence as if someone were standing just behind her. She turned slowly, and there he was. A man drenched from the rain, his eyes filled with the depth of emotion she couldn't comprehend. He looked at her as if she were the answer to every question he'd ever asked. "Eh?" Claire whispered, tears filling her eyes. He nodded, stepping closer. "It's me," he said softly. "I found you again." Claire took a shaky breath. "But how? How is this possible?" "We made a promise," he said, reaching out to cup her cheek. "A promise that no matter what happened, we'd find each other, even if it took lifetimes." She searched his face, memories flooding back with each second. Laughter, tears, a love that spanned across time itself. "I remember now," she whispered. "I remember everything." He pulled her into his arms, and she melted against him, feeling the completeness she hadn't realized she was missing. "I never stopped loving you," he said. "Not in any of our lives." "And I never will," she replied. They stood there wrapped in each other's arms, the willow tree their silent witness. It was a love that had defied time, a connection that couldn't be broken. Claire pulled back slightly, looking up at him with a smile. "Yours eternally." He kissed her forehead, his smile tender. "Yours eternally," he promised. And as they held each other beneath the willow tree, it was as if time itself had bent to their love, bringing them together once more from a lifetime long past.